everybody. Well, we're back by the fire. The dog is obviously very happy that the fire is on down here. What a nice piggy. Yes. So a little bit chilly still in the studio in spite of the sun. Hopefully you've got some shells with you. We're going to do some quick drawing exercises, and then we're going to do a little watercolour. Thanks so much again to everyone who's been contacting and engaging with these live streams. I hope you're really enjoying them. And hopefully, again, you will post your results and the things that you do underneath. If you can put them in the comments underneath the video, that's absolutely fantastic, then people can see them. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move around and get started. So hoping to have this really nice and close so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to move that one out of the way, and that one. And I want you to perhaps pick up your shell. Because very often when we come to draw something, we just kind of put it down and it's got sand on it. We just put it down and we draw it. But actually it's quite nice to pick it up and think about the shell itself. So you might look at the textures, feel how rough it is. It's quite cold as well, actually, and kind of investigate what's going on, that lovely sort of spiral. You know, if you cut these in half, it look amazing, don't they? So just thinking about the shell and looking at it to begin with is a really good way to sort of start your drawing, because you've kind of investigated it a little bit. And I'm going to knock the shell, the sand off. Now I've got my board slightly on a slope so that you'll be able to see what I'm doing. This might be a problem. I'll have to draw it that way up. I was kind of hoping to be able to draw inside a little bit because it's more interesting. Anyway, there we are. That's fine like that. And I want to just do a couple of warm-up exercises that my classes will know and be very familiar with. And the first one is a single line drawing. And these are really helpful because they help you to sort of investigate the shell. So I'm going to imagine that I'm a little ant and that I'm starting off here and that my pencil's a little ant, and I'm going to walk, if you like, across this side of the shell with my drawing. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to sort of investigate the shape of the shell, and I'm going down the sort of nooks and crannies, and I can press a bit harder when I can see a darker tone, and I can go a bit lighter when I'm on the sort of lighter areas. I guess there's a nice dark bit there, and they're sort of beginning to be a bit wiggly like that. And you can do these on your own and let them take a really long time. And I'm not picking up my pencil. And sometimes this makes the drawings turn out a little bit bonkers. That's okay, I don't mind that. But it's really thinking about the shell. And then there's this bit coming here. So, so I hope you guys are all coping with being at home and finding things to do. And I'm going to go here. So what you'll also notice is that I'm not doing, which I might have done if I was just drawing it normally, is I'm not drawing the outside edge. Sometimes our drawings get a little bit dominated by the outside edge, and my students will tell you that I'm constantly saying try not to draw the outside edge, because actually when you draw inside you have a much more interesting shell shape, or whatever it is you're drawing, object. I'm going to come around here, and you can see it's taking me a little bit longer. It might look a bit strange to you because the angle that I can see, so I haven't got my head in your way, which I have done a few times, I guess, is different to what you're seeing, the angle you're seeing of the shell. And there's a little kick out there. And I'm just going to also, with my single line, come this way, so I can see some quite strong lines that do that. But I still haven't taken my pencil off. I'm going to come around here with a wiggle, I want to find that one, and I might just now indicate the outside edge of this shell, wiggly line there. I'm not going to do it down there. There, my pencil is off. And there's the drawing of my shell with a single line. There's no shadows, there's no kind of tone. I haven't used the side of my pencil. I've just drawn it, and I've sort of investigated it and been all over the whole surface of the painting, the drawings. That's a really helpful thing to do. So while I'm investigating this shell, I'm just going to push that up a little bit higher. I sort of want to see the shell inside, if I can make it do that. Should have thought of that. A little bit of masking tape will do it. Oh, let's see if I can stick it with a bit of tape. Bit of tape there. Yeah, can you see the shell? So I've got it up this way now because I quite want to look at the inside. I'm going to do a different kind of drawing this time, and I'm going to do a drawing where I'm going to completely make a big shape of sort of grey. Because this time I do want to think about the shadows. I'm just making a little square there by using the side of my pencil. That's why it's really handy to have a nice sharp pencil. You can see that's flattened it possibly. There's no point trying to do that by the edge because you'll just get lines like this. But really just hold your pencil flat on the surface. And that makes a nice flat sort of grey shape. And then I'm going to take my rubber. I'm still working with this really grotty rubber on. And I'm going to use my rubber to find the shape of the shell. Now I might then come back in and use my pencil, but just to begin with, I'm going to use the rubber, and I'm going to do it in a way perhaps as I would do it if I was finding shadows, but instead of finding shadows, I'm trying to find lights. And I'm also working in the same way as I've done this, I guess, by working from the inside a little bit, thinking about those tones. So when I've found some of the lightness of that, then I might come and put in, again with the side of my pencil, I'm going to try and find that shape of that little curl. It's a bit further up there actually. Let me just bring that in, but I'm keeping my pencil on the side. Quite a lot of times when we're trying to draw, we try and do things in sort of writing mode. We hold our pencil in writing kind of mode, if you like, and it makes it much harder to do drawing if it's being done like that. You want to do it in drawing mode, which is kind of holding it differently. There's a shadow there, and I can see that I need a big bright bit there, so I'm going to make that a bit brighter. I can start to get the shape. What is that doing there? My pencil. And I'm going to begin. I'm rushing along, of course, because I want you to have a chance to do this, not have too much time watching me. But I love drawing. I think drawing is a very helpful way to sort of access any kind of object, even if you're going to not do a drawing. It's not your end game, if you like, but sometimes just doing a drawing to start you off really helps. And then I'm going to come along here. And what you might notice is I really am trying to do that thing of not particularly concentrating on the outside edges too much. I've just done that shadow underneath. And because I've got a grey tone down, it helps to give me all my mid-tones. So I haven't got to put them in. Sometimes you can just spend forever on a drawing putting in like those middle tonal shapes. But I'm just staying very much with sort of flat pencil. I'm not kind of worrying too much about lines at the minute. That's quite a mid-tone there, isn't it? And then sometimes it's quite helpful to make your object appear a bit stronger, to put the sort of shadows in, and sometimes just to sharpen up what's going on behind. Obviously I've got a white bit of paper down here, it's not grey at all, but I'm using the grey of my... Just going to see if I can find the edge of that object with that mid-tone that's in the background. find this. And look, you can, I can see that that possibly needs to be a bit paler, so I'm just going to use my rubber. So use the rubber as a drawing tool. We kind of get a bit, I once worked in a department and working with younger children, and the art teacher there wouldn't let them have any rubbers, but of course it was absolutely awful, so because they couldn't, well, you need a rubber. It's like, that's how you draw. And there's nothing wrong with rubbing out. It's okay, mistakes are fine, and they help you to get the object right in the end. I used to have a sneaky rubber in my pocket that they'd have when no one was looking. But it's okay to have a rubber, don't worry about that. Now I am going to just put a little bit of lines in here now. I want to put right at the end of my drawing, if you like. I'm going to come, and it's hard not to still be in, it's too hard. Push that too hard. I'm in single line drawing mode there. So I'm very palely going to put in some of those shapes because it will help to describe the shape of the shell going round. Looks like a bit of a funny old shell, doesn't it, from this angle? I was so determined to do it that way. Not sure it was the best idea, but there we are. I'm just going to use some lines to make the shell and the texture of the shell appear just a little bit. And I want to sort of show the edge of this bit here. This could be one of those moments that Zoe and I talk about demos that don't go brilliantly well, and we have a good giggle at them, and this could be one of those. It's looking a bit strange. There we go. And so we've got the sort of texture, and obviously you could fiddle around at that for ages, and spend a really long time, but I just wanted to do it to investigate on that dark line there. Just to investigate the shape of the shell. Let's bring that little tone around there. So you're just thinking about shadows. So on the first drawing you were just thinking about, in a sense, lines, and on this second drawing you were thinking about shadows. And I'm definitely sure that you can post some photographs of your shells that will be Beat the Teacher on this one. Okay. So I've done a little investigation of my my shell just to sort of get used to it, to get ready to do a little watercolour. And I've sort of thought about it, and it's kind of nice. I've been able to handle it and hold it. So now I'm going to just push this to the side. My pencil down. And I'm going to use some watercolours, but I'm going to really limit my palette. I'm going to use this colour here, which is a sort of yellowy colour, and it's called Yellow Ochre. And then this colour here, which anyone who has been in a class of mine or knows my kind of colours that I like, this is Indigo, which I love, which is a sort of very dark blue. And I'm going to bring my little bit of watercolour paper up here. I've got my 2 bits of paint ready, and I've got my what have we got? My water pot and everything ready to go as well. Don't want to do that one. No, let's stay with the same shell. I'm picking up the wrong shell. I'm going to go back to that sort of shape because I think it looked nicer, didn't it? And that's the good thing about doing a little drawing. You can go, actually, I was so determined to turn it upside down and see inside, but actually I think I like it better from this edge. So, nice big water pot. I'm going to get my brush nice and wet. And yes, I'm going to go straight in with no drawing. So I'm going to get my palette, and remember from, if you did the session earlier in the week, I talked about doing things really palely, having very pale washes. So I'm going to put lots of water on my plate so that's very, very pale. I'm not going anywhere near the blue. And I quite like working quite large, so I'm going to probably scale this up a little bit. And I'm going to come around, and I'm going to put a little wash of colour straight away, because it does have some tone in it. I'm going to leave some bits that will be white, but as I go along with this, there will be bits that stay whiter anyway. I'll just put that down. So there's kind of giving me my shape. I'm just going to squeeze my brush out, and I've just squeezed my brush into my water pot so that I can just use it to pull those bits that are going to run and to make it lovely and pale. Let's do that again. Use a rag to dry your brush. Just lift those back out again. I don't want to keep overworking them because they will be annoying and damaged. Cool. And I'm just going to pick up some of this again, and this time going to, in a quite controlled way, I'm going to flick a little bit of thing there just to give me some textures, and I'm going to do that a few times, so that's okay. And I can, with my brush, because this is a non-staining colour, possibly lift those ones out of the picture. Try not to rub your paper when you do that. And now I'm going to bring my palette, and I'm going to get a tiny little bit of this blue. It's very powerful and very strong as a mixing colour, so you will instantly send that quite green. And I don't want it to be too strong. And I want to think about going underneath, and I really like that it's going wet into wet. So unlike the paintbrush, where we tried to kind of just work with making dry washes, this we're going to be wet into wet. I'm going to let it run a little bit. I'm going to make my shadow underneath. I'll start to show that. I've got a bit of cross lighting here, so I'm just going to decide to go with this one. And I guess what we've done today is that it's kind of quite a nice way to work, is to kind of think about, quite often, doing a little drawing before you start a painting. We quite often in the classes do thumbnails. I'm just going to flick some of that as well. It's beginning to get it a little bit more interesting. Don't have to do the flicking thing if you don't want to. I know that can feel a little bit scary. And now I'm going to clean off my palette so that it's clean again. And my brush and my water. And by working with these thin washes, your water doesn't get too dirty either. So I'm going to just make another nice yellowy wash again. I'm going to let it get slightly darker. So like we did last time, I'm allowing that to just get a little bit darker. So each layer that you put on, you work in less spaces, but you're putting on a little bit more. And I want to just think about the kind of here, the little gaps. Now I could, if I wanted to, put in a little bit of a different colour to make it a bit pinker, but actually I just kind of want to stay with these two colours. That's okay for me at the moment. And I want to begin to think about the textures. Now obviously, because I'm working slightly on a slope, so you can see it's running a little bit, but just in a minute I'm happy with this. It's just running along, and it does lovely things, and this is what I mean about watercolour being really lovely when it's wet. Let's run it into the shadow a bit. So I'm just going to lift that out with my brush. And I'm going to work in some of the areas that aren't so wet. Now I'm just going to pick a little bit of that light blue again, of the dark blue rather, but keeping it quite light, because I want to begin to think about what's going on here. Going in this sort of cross direction. And it gives the other bits as well a chance to dry off. But can you see I'm keeping it really pale I don't want to have lots of dark lines. Oh, making bubbles there. Just put some dark in there. And I can drop some quite dark into places, can you see, and it will still run a little bit, which is quite lovely. So I'm letting that go a bit dark. I want these nice lines across here. Hoping that the fire that was on a little bit might dry this out. All painted in the sun is quite nice. If you're able to paint out in the garden, that's really nice if you have one, because it dries beautifully quickly on a day like this. And what happens, you can think that you're doing something quite scary because it feels really strong and that those colours are really bold, but actually what's happening is that those will dry a little bit. I can still fiddle about with the shape up here. Keeping it very pale. Now I do sort of need that to dry. So let's just... This is when I'd send everyone off to do it at this stage. Off you go and do that. If they're all in the classroom, you'll have to come and join a class, you lot watching, if you haven't already. This is time for me to make the tea for you all. Okay, so I've really set this up now, tonally. I'm just having to fight a little bit against it going a bit green. So I'm just watching out for that. I'm just going to put some more into that one. And one of the things that people worry about when they're doing a painting is that at this stage it can all look a bit bonkers and, you know, like not quite right and not very correct. And that's okay, it doesn't matter. Now I am going to give this a quick blast with the hairdryer, so if you're following along, I think it's time to you can have a little go at catching it up. I'm just going to blast that with a hairdryer, because otherwise it's too wet. You can show the dog. Yeah, I'm back. That's better. Okay, I am going to just introduce another colour. Let me just get this in the right place. There we are. So I put out here ready to go is this little colour here, which is sort of an... I'll put it on the plate, then you can see it. Now that I've put that first layer in, I just need a little bit of help with another colour. Only I've picked the one that doesn't want to come out. Come on, out you come. I suppose it's sort of brick red is a good description. It's called Indian red, which is very much like the... oh, someone's at the door. The dog will go and get that. I should have put the thing up, don't knock. No one's supposed to be coming to the door. I suppose it could be a delivery of what, I don't know. Anyway, here we go. So I'm just bringing that Indian red. No, I'm going to give it a nice clean plate. Actually, that blue isn't helping, is it? So we'll clean off the plate. Nice clean brush. giving Pete a bit of exercise, run up the hill, up the stairs. And oh, let's blob it while I was thinking. I'm just going to put some of this colour in. Just to make it a bit more shell-like. And I'm going to change my brush in a minute. So I'm just going to come down to a slightly smaller brush. And while it's dry, I'm just going to gather some of that up. Oh. And like with everything, like we've done before, I need to make sure that we've got some darks in there. So I'm going to really start to push my darks. I'm going to use a little bit of that red and a little bit of the indigo to start to think about where are the shadows on this, where are the strong darks. And I'm pushing them to be darker than they might be to my eyeballs. But actually that's okay, it works. And I'm just going to see if I can lift that little bit out there. So hard not to lean against it. I'm just going to lift a light bit out so that that line is quite dark there and then it's quite light here. So it's kind of quite nice to be able to lift that out with this brush, as you can see that. And just pull some of that colour around here. So if you've been following along from the beginning, thank you so much. That's really cool. And I hope that you're finding the right kind of materials to be able to do this at home. So I'm just going to make something of that one. And then there's that one. And then I want to see that one. That could do with just being around there a little bit. Kind of, that's better. So you can still correct a little bit with watercolour. We can get a bit afraid of watercolour that it won't be correctable and you can't do anything with it. And once it's done, I need to speed this up because you've been here a while. And just still thinking about the textures if I can, you know, separating out my brush strokes. Can you see that? Trying to get that little swirly thing that's going on there. And then there. Now I'm sure that if you're not doing it in such a rush and you'll be able to just post these on along. Some of you might be keeping up, which is amazing with the brushes, those people that did that. And hopefully you're still maintaining your gallery for everyone to see, especially as we're so completely not able to go very far and you can't. So we need things near to home that look beautiful to see. So I hope you're putting your beautiful pictures in your windows so your neighbours can see them. I just want to lift that up back a bit. That's a bit dark. I'm trying not to make this side so dark, though I just put that bit there that was quite dark. Lifting it out with a big paintbrush is really useful. So I can kind of correct. This isn't the best shell I've ever done, if I'm honest. I'm going to say that out loud because you're probably thinking that too. But hey, I'm hoping that you can, you know, you can have a go at this and do a, like I said, well, I'm up for seeing a Beat the Teacher. I'm sure there's one out there already. And then just going back to my big brush. I want to make the tone just soften around here. I want to find my shadow again, because the shadow's got a little bit the same colour as the shell, so let's make it blue again. So I'm just going to bring some blue down and just see if I can find that shadow. Sorry, head ducked in there. That's better. You can see, can't you, shadows underneath it really help it. That's better. And then I'm just going to wiggle some details in. So back to my little brush. Once again, it's about maybe making as much of the colours as you can. There's some wonderful textures in there that, you know, you could even come down to a tiny weeny little brush and put in some of those really tiny textures. But try and keep those the same with the brush bristles, not everywhere, otherwise it just looks a bit too overdrawn. And those lines help to make the shell shape, you know, go round. I'm just going to come up to here and do some this colour. So I'm just going to put some of this colour on here. I want some textures up at the top, but I'm going to do it with my tiny weeny little brush. So it's a very big shell. Maybe I should have drawn it a little bit littler, then it would feel more like a shell, perhaps. But at least you can see it, I hope. And you get the idea. Just putting that detail back in. Obviously you could do it, take it again to the hairdryer and dry it again, but I don't think you want to, you know, stay for that. I'm just putting in some thin little lines just to show where that shell goes. Nice. Okay. I think probably we're done. I could fiddle away with that for ages, and I'm sure you can do the same, spend a little bit longer maybe on it. But hopefully that gives you an idea of how you might start to put a shell together. But do those little drawings first of all if you're not doing it along with the video. Is go back and spend some time doing that. So you've done a little drawing so you know where it is that you want to draw and what you want to draw. And then I'll just put those in. See, I could fiddle forever. And do post them underneath so I can see them. That would be amazing. Thank you, and I'll see you hopefully again on Monday. Bye.